Hi folks, this is KG here. Just listening to the Crowject.
Betts with an opportunity about 50 metres out. Oh, yes! Yes! Yes!
To the excitement machine, McLeod. Left foot goal.
Oh, don't tell me.
He's a superstar.
Don't tell me. Oh!
Bounces straight up. Leaves a pass the ball. Oh, they're humming holes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of the Crowject. Today's a special episode. It's another journey into the deep dive that is the 1990s and the Adelaide Crows. Just want to give a shout out to our sponsors off the top. Pain Med SA, your pain and rehabilitation specialists. The Arkabar Hotel, thank you for their continued support. Look forward to seeing them up and running shortly. Support your local. And Trojan Aluminium, a great family-owned business. If you need anything, hit them up.
So in regards to our latest episode of the 1990s deep dive on the Crows, we had the great man himself, Ken Cunningham, on, a stalwart of the local media landscape in Adelaide as well, and a very passionate man for all things SANFL.
He's
and
synonymous
AFL
with
too.
South Australian football and broadcasting.
Absolutely.
His passion is his passion is a dying art.
And during the time of the 1990s, he was obviously the chief commentator for Fiveaa as well in the heyday of the Crows too. And that was one of our major things that we focused on. And Damon, there were quite a few things that we got to, weren't there?
It was amazing. It's when you sit someone down for an interview, and what would you say? The etiquette is what's off limits, what shouldn't we talk about, and no, it was carte blanche.
Yeah.
And he was so conversational. I found it was not hard to get anything out of him, and he was just so happy to talk. And like you said, Cream, that passion that he has. You try holding him back from talking about the Crows, you just can't.
Some of the things he said, how some people haven't been easily approachable. I could not think of a more easily approachable person that I've spoken to.
Absolutely.
To be honest with you.
So without further ado, here is our interview with the great man, Ken KG Cunningham. Now we're here, and names do not get any bigger than this. The representative of South Australia in the Sheffield Shield, SANFL umpire, TV personality on Channel 9 for many years, and the host of the #1 drive time sports show with Graham Corns on Fiveaa, and one of the best footy commentators of all time.
Yes. Where is he? New bloke walking in there.
It is, of course, an honour to welcome Ken Cunningham onto the Crowject podcast and our 90s deep dive. Welcome, Ken.
Pleasure to be here, Peter. Andrew and Damon, nice to be here.
Now, I just got to say, first off, it is absolutely surreal to have KG here.
No.
Listening many, many years to Fiveaa and all of the Crows calls as well, it's tickles my ears, so to speak.
Well, I was lucky to be able to do it. It was a privilege and an honour for me to be able to do it, and it was a lot of fun, I could tell you, and some wonderful, wonderful moments.
I'll bet.
Absolutely.
I listened back last night to the 97 grand final
I'll
call.
never forget that.
No,
No,
because there was a point where I was listening and genuinely worried for your health.
So was I.
At the end of the first quarter, I think you turned to Graham and went, I nearly passed out.
Yeah.
And Graham was there ready to catch you, I reckon, in the box.
Exactly. Well, the last quarter was even more tough or tougher because you could see the game unfolding and that things were starting to happen for the Crows, and then Darren Jarman started to weave some magic, and I thought, no, this couldn't be their first AFL premiership. And the longer the quarter went, the more I had goosebumps saying, knowing full well and trying to harness it, that this was going to be their history in the making, their first premiership.
And I think you harnessed that beautifully too.
Well, I don't know in fact, I don't know what I said in the dying moments. I have no idea.
5 minutes, Graham. I'm not going to look. Darren Jarman, the kick on its way. Don't worry, KG. It does not move. It does not deviate a millimetre. Come on! Straight through the middle. They lead again by 15 points, the Crows. 9 minutes into this final term. Adelaide 13-11-89. St Kilda 10-14-74 on the Foodland scoreboard. A handball from Harvey to Burke, who's played well. Goes in the direction of Wakeland. They punch it to Jarman. Jarman. To the Adelaide Crows. Another goal to Adelaide.
Goes bang back towards the half-forward area. Winmar, Tyson Edwards, off hands and goes to Rennie. Goes over the top to Ellen. Ellen has space in the middle of the ground. Kick it, son. He finally does. It's inside 50. What did he wait for? At the back of the back. It's right for goal. It's on. Jarman picked it all away. yes! Look at the Spoonland scoreboard. Adelaide 15-11, 101. St Kilda 10-14, 74, 27-point lead, and we've played 14 minutes into the final term, and the box about 2 up is full of South Australians, and they've gone absolutely berserk.
98,000 people here today, and Darren Jarman.
Can you believe it? 27
They
point
are
money.
home, KG. They are home. They cannot lose from here. They
Turn
will
goes to
not
Connell. Connell bangs it up towards full forward. We got to get a goal here. Up the back of the pack, Darren Jarman goes around his body. Don't tell me! Oh, Darren Jarman! I think he may have just he kicked the goal.
Yeah.
Has he kicked the goal?
He's kicked the goal.
That's an unbelievable goal. He's kicked it out of his bum. He has kicked that one out of his bum for sure. He has kicked that out of his backside.
Now, where are those people who said Darren
St
Jarman?
Kilda, 12-15-87, Adelaide, 17-11, 113. Unbelievable. Down the hatches and little old Adelaide next week, I can tell her she's on. She is on.
I can't wait to get one or two of the players on in our deep dive eventually and just ask them when they thought the game was won. You know what I mean? In that last quarter?
Yeah.
Like,
it was just a sort of a great feeling, but it was a feeling that you could see things starting to happen. The ball was starting to run for the players.
Yeah,
and
it was too. Yeah.
You thought this is going to be their day. And Darren Jarman, God, straight me pink. He was unbelievable.
Amazing. I've completely forgotten until I watched the game back just how good he was.
Just as
Had the
only
ball
he
on
could
a string,
play.
didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
He did. And kicking for goal. He's weaving out of trouble. I thought, this is poetry in motion here.
as good as it gets.
That's exactly right.
Exactly
There's
right.
a good movie called that too, as good as it gets. I remember seeing it. Good movie.
That was 90s as well. That could be part of our 90s deep dive.
Yeah.
We're keeping with the theme here at the Crowject.
Good as it gets.
So can I ask, when did you start in the media? Like, how did you get your foot in the door?
Well, it was amazing. I can remember it was way back in 1968. I was just sort of hovering around doing all sorts of strange jobs and so forth. And Michael Peterson had this Michael Peterson sports show on Channel 9.
Okay.
And he sort of said, I was having lunch with him one day through a few friends, and he said, KG, what are you doing? And I said, well, I've just retired from umpiring. I've spat the dummy there.
I was going to say, because you umpired for the 4 grand finals
did.
between 63 and 66.
I did, yeah. And I spat the dummy in 67 when I umpired a Port Glenelg game. It was a semi-final game. And I thought I'd gone okay. The game was tough. It was Cornsey's first game, and it was a real tough, hard, typical Port Adelaide Glenelg game. And I walked up thinking, I've done a pretty good job here. Not being a big head, but I was. And when I got the report the following Monday down at Railway Oval, because they give you a little praise of your performance.
Yep.
And I got a shocker.
Oh, wow.
They weren't happy.
No, they weren't happy at all. So I just stood there in front of Brian Lees, who was a former umpire with me. He was the coach. I tore it up.
Right in front of him?
Right in front of him. And my late wife was working at Football House, who was in charge. She was a secretary there. And I went home and said, that's it, I'm finished. Gone. That's it, done and dusted.
Yeah.
And I went in there on the Wednesday, handed him a resignation in, and never umpired since. And I was an absolute prima donna. So to answer your question, I told that story to Michael Peterson. She said, look, would you like to come on the Michael Peterson Sports Channel? So hang on, I stutter, I stammer, I talk too quick. But look, yeah, I'll give it a go. And that's where it all started.
You'll fit right in here, mate, with all the stammering, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, so I started on the Michael Peterson Sports Show with the Ken Applin. There's a number of great players there. Stan Wickham, as a novice. That's where it all started.
And who was your favourite player that you umpired?
My favourite player that I umpired was Neil Curley.
Yep, of course.
Being a West Adelaide man.
Westies.
Born and bred in the West End.
Yep.
He was hard. He was tough. He used to try and run behind you, umpire the game, and do all those sort of things.
Well, I've actually unearthed a bit of a story that he tells.
And what's that about?
About him knocking you out.
He knocked me out.
Now, he also claims he was best on ground during that game. Was that because he knocked you out?
It probably was. But I remember him knocking me out in the 19... What was it now?
64?
64, and he knocked me out in the 1964 prelim final. It was a tough, hard game. It was South Adelaide playing Sturt. Port had won their way into the second semi-final, into the next week's grand final. And, of course, South in 63 had finished bottom. So Curls had done a terrific job taking South from bottom to a prelim final.
Was he? What was his role at South Adelaide?
He was
at the time? He was captain coach.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
Previous year he played for West Eastern, and he wanted a clearance because he had a blue with the chairman there or something, and they didn't give him a clearance until about 5 games in. Anyway, cut a long story short, the game's going on. It's a wet, shocking day at the Adelaide Oval. Shocking day. I'm having a shocking day with the whistle. Every time I blew the bloody whistle, the whistle good, so I could have thrown it away. Anyway, it was. I said to him, he'd be running behind me and having a crack at me and saying this and give us a go, all this. And I'm walking up at half time. I said, Curls, now look, enough's enough. Enough. Yeah. I've had enough. I'm having enough time trying to control 36 players. You're giving me a hard time. Yeah. Enough's enough. If you don't shut up after half time, bye-bye you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and Curls responds well to that sort of
and we're coming out after half time. John Halbers kicked the first goal after half time to put Sturt about 5 goals in front. And most people, even myself, thought the game was over. And I remember vividly, I threw the ball up in the middle of the ground and Soapy Cantilla got the tap. Ian Day took the tap and took off like a scalded cat through the midfield. The midfield was a bog. And he's gone with a mongrel punt kick down to the River Torrens end.
Yes.
I put the head down and bum up and made a beeline for where the ball was. Got within about 4 or 5 metres, about 10 or 12 players around the ball. The next thing, bang, down I've gone. The next thing I remember was being escorted off the ground by 2 trainers to take no further part in the game. And South Adelaide, by a miracle, got up and won the game. Yes. They were due to play Port in the next week's grand final. And I was appointed to the grand final subject to passing a fitness test on the Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I had about 25 needles in my leg ankle to get through the test.
Yeah.
Got through it and was appointed to the grand final. It was a beautiful day. Port playing South. South hadn't won a premiership for nearly 40 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, in those days, the umpire used to inspect the players' rings and boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Port's come out with Johnny Carl and Port and said to Jack, good luck, Jack. And South Adelaide were lined up and I'm doing the South Adelaide players and all the time I'm doing that, Curls is going along the front there, breathing fire and frothing at the mouth and demanding this and demanding that. And his was the last set of boots that I did. I remember picking up the right boot, wrapped the hand over the specs, put it down. Left boot, put it down, looked at his hands, they were ugly, but no rings. Yeah. And I said to Curls the same, I just walked over to him and said, Neil, good luck today. And he's turned around and for about 5 inches from my face, said, Ken, don't worry about this good luck bullshit. If you don't give us today, a go today, I'll knock you out in the first so-and-so course. That's a true story.
Doesn't sound like knuckles.
And you wouldn't believe that today we're good friends.
Oh, beautiful.
He takes me fishing. So there you go.
Oh, beautiful.
So you started and you were obviously doing media while you were playing cricket.
Yes.
You were Player of the Year in 71, 72.
Yep.
SA 7-time South Australian captain and on 3 winning Shield teams.
Yeah, 3 of them. Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Do you think the Redbacks will ever go 600 days without winning another Sheffield
Well,
Shield?
the way things are going there, sadly, it'll be a long time because they haven't won one since, 95, 96.
Yep.
I've had a couple of chances since that time, but they just can't get over the line. And as we know, Mike Hussey's doing an outside sort of look at the
an external review. We enjoy them here in South Australia,
don't we? Yeah, we seem to have them once every couple of years.
We do. Yeah. Ask the Crows. Anyway, they'll do all that, but they just can't get their act together. They're just so consistent with bat and ball at times. It's just been frustrating, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, because we've got the best conditions here.
By none.
They need to overhaul the standard of district cricket. That's one of the weak links because when I was playing, and not living back in the bow and arrow days, but every one of the district clubs had a genuine fast bowler, and now they're little piddly quicks. Yeah, and they don't. It's not the right sort of.
It's a lost art.
Well, it is. It is, and it's not the way to sort of move up the ladder to Shield. It doesn't give you the right grounding.
Exactly. Yeah.
So hopefully they'll get over the line one day. Yeah. I hope I'm alive to see it.
I don't think that gets talked about enough. Your personal achievements playing sports, because that record of winning Sheffield Shields and Player of the Year and all this.
But see, Damon, I was lucky playing in 3 winning Sheffield Shield sides. I played with Ian and Greg Chappell, Neil Danty, Les Favell, Barry Richards.
Yes. Oh, see, that would help.
They just dragged me along. And when you play with a bloke called Sir Garfield Sobers.
Yes.
Now, just to be in the same, born and bred in the West End, I'm a West End boy.
Yeah.
Just to be in the same change rooms.
Correct.
As a bloke called Garfield Sobers, and to see what he could do and what he did. Every time he was working for Coke. He was on $1 a run, $1 a wicket in the 4 years he played here. He
really
50 wickets and 1,000 runs.
Unbelievable.
But he was just I can still say or see it when I was batting with him without big noting. I didn't bat very long. I wasn't out very long.
Yeah.
And he used to say, "Come on, Kenny. Come on, Kenny." He used to call me Buddy Kenny. "Come on, Kenny." And he'd go, "Don't run for that, Kenny. Don't run for that, Kenny."
Stay down there then, mate.
Yeah. They were wonderful days, absolutely. But Ian Chappell, those blokes, Barry Jarman, you can go on and on. Joel Garner.
Chappell brothers, yeah.
How lucky are you?
Well, we might as well dive into what is the Adelaide Crows, or what they were in the early days. Can you remember the general feeling surrounding the Crows following their inception in '91? Obviously, there was
Andrew, I can remember it like it was only yesterday, and I've been lucky enough to be involved in sport and the media 44 years I think it is now, and I can't recall a sporting organisation having an impact on the community as big as the Crows. People that never went to football suddenly started to go to the footy. It was the in thing to follow the Crows. And suddenly that we had experts all over the state knowing what the game was about. And it had an enormous impact. And it changed people's lives. There were some elderly people who just fell in love with the Crows. They have been sensational for this town. And the thing that really annoys me as the time has gone on is that the moment they sneeze, the media is all over it like a rash. You only had to take a guideline through the drama at the Barossa Valley when the police commissioner said it was an inadvertent accident.
A non-event, I think is probably better.
Non-event. Yet the Victorian media made a huge hue and cry over it.
As a side thing there, what are your thoughts on some of the journalism? For example, Tom Brown saying that we were going to lose all of our draft picks and $100,000 fine.
Absolutely. Jared Wakely saying take their premiership points away. Gary Lyon, who I have great respect for, take draft picks away. Talk about over dramatic
exactly.
Where do you think that comes from? Is it as simple as a Victorian South Australian thing?
Well, Damon, it's always been there. The rivalry between Victoria and South Australia in cricket and footy is more so footy. With Teddy Whitten, John Nichols,
of course,
Neil Curley, and the fact we beat him in '63 for the first time in umpteen years. That rivalry, and it's always special. It was always special. When I was lucky enough to be playing cricket for South Australia to beat Victoria. It was always great to win, but it had an extra flavour to it when it was Victoria.
I was going to say, we have a personal feeling about just not liking Victoria. But you managed to smash a double century against Victoria once upon a time.
I did. I was lucky to get a few edges and so forth. and Bill Laurie was the captain of Victoria, and he's lovely. And one of the few nice Victorian, Bill Laurie.
They still exist. They are out there.
It takes a long while to find them. Damon, I can tell you. But no, that was one of the lucky days. But to beat Victoria, Andrew and guys, it was something very, very special. You just talked to Neil Curley and the late Teddy Whitten. There was that arch rivalry. Off the ground, fine, but on the pitch, good luck.
That theatre that those two blokes had, it was almost like WWE wrestling, wasn't it? That sort of personas that were too big for the game.
You could tell a million stories about Teddy Whitten and Curls and those days and Causey.
But in regards to the State of Origin, obviously lost there. The last game probably of our era was the 94 game, Victoria South Australia at
I think that was
Footy Park.
I've actually got the game at home on DVD.
So 93 was at the MCG, but 94 it was a very close game. But since that point, obviously, State of Origin has dropped off. But
because of the Crows going in, going in. So
is that something that you miss?
Enormously. They were some in the 80s. They were some of the best games that I had the good fortune of calling. The night that Stephen Kernahan kicked 10 goals
Yes.
from 10.5 forward. The night that Dermot Brereton, Martin Leslie put Dermot Brereton on his bum.
Yes.
Right on the chin, knocked him down. And I remember I was calling, I said, "You beauty!" And no one knew what I was saying, "You beauty." I described this, just put him on his backside. But no, they were wonderful days.
Nowadays, he would get 9 years.
Oh,
for that,
he'd
wouldn't he?
probably
If
get
he knocked him down like that, he'd get life. Never play the game
was
again.
right flush on the chin.
I was going to save this question for after, but I might as well ask it now. That Mark Rashudo hit on Dean Kemp back in 1996.
You've been itching to ask this. You were dancing up
do
and
you
down.
remember
That's the biggest hit I think I've ever seen. And I don't think Dean Kemp has been
the same since?
No, that had a long-term effect on him. Lovely bloke, Dean Kemp, but that was one of the hardest hits I think I've seen in footy. Like so far as body on body, elbows and that, but this was like a block of cement hitting Dean Kemp.
Back then, blokes were hard as a cat's head, but I think Rashudo's came out and said early on in his career he didn't want to be known for that.
That's exactly
He
right.
wasn't that kind of player.
Robert Shaw changed that. He wanted Robert Shaw wanted Roo to be the tough, hard man, and that took something away from Roo's game.
I think he said in his biography actually that he was becoming a player he didn't enjoy being.
Exactly right.
He wanted to be the fast and skillful
Correct.
bloke as well as the hard guy.
Yeah, exactly. But that was a hard hit.
So in regards, if we go through the coaches of the 90s for the Crows, you've got Graham Corns, storied relationship there.
Yep.
But in regards to Robert Shaw, when he came into the club, obviously after Corns' departure, did you have a relationship with him at all in regards to access, etc. at your time? Because you were on Channel 9.
He was very difficult to engage with. Right. Robert Shaw had his own sort of, well, it's just fair, own sort of way of doing things.
Yeah.
But as far as coaches for the Crows, he was probably the most difficult one to sort of communicate.
Least accessible.
Least accessible. There was always a reason why. And I know they're busy, but always a reason why he couldn't do an interview or whatever. But he was the toughest to work with, Robert Shaw. And he was brought in to toughen the Crows up, so to speak. People thought that the Crows needed a Victorian sort of image and so forth.
Bit of Fitzroy attitude and
it was.
lack of money.
Exactly right, Petty, exactly right. And that's why he was put in as coach. And you speak to the players, and not that I want to criticise anybody, but they didn't speak very well of him, no.
I've heard Jarman a few times
Andrew Jarman.
Don't
start him. Don't start him. Don't mention the name Robert Shaw.
Okay.
Wow.
So we'll go back to the inaugural squad, obviously finalised 2 weeks before the start of the 91 season. 52 players were put together over the summer of 1991, recruited from 10 SANFL clubs, interstate clubs, and highly rated young players, Ben Hart and Sean Wren, just to name a couple of them.
Correct.
First season, they went 10-12 and 11-11 in 92. What do you remember of the prelim from 93 against Essendon when they were up by 5 goals at halftime? Did you think they'd be so good so early?
No, I didn't. And let me go on record as saying that I reckon in 93, that's including the 2 winning premierships. That's the best style of game I think I've ever seen the Crows play. When Causey was in charge, and how they lost that game is completely beyond me. They were so far in front at halftime. I think Jars missed one from directly in front, just before halftime, and then out comes this little red-headed bloke. I can't think of his name now. And Timmy Watson, they destroyed
Tim
us.
Watson,
and I was home listening to it, laying on the bed, punching the crap out of the pillow and the mattress, and saying no. But you could see, like our first grand final win, you could see the tide turning.
Yes.
And that's a game that got away because they would have beaten Carlton the following week. No doubt about that.
Absolutely.
There was another bloke playing for Essendon too by the name of Michael Long from memory as well.
Michael
Who had
Long,
a bit of an
fair
effect.
player, fair player.
Just a little bit.
I think I remember reading something about that prelim last week or the week before, saying that Essendon were always, even at halftime, they thought they were going to win the game. They just thought they needed to kick the first 2 of the second half.
That's exactly what Cornsey says.
And he said it said that the Crows were complacent. They got content with their lead, and that's what.
Well, I thought they were home.
Yeah,
I thought they were home.
Maybe they did too.
Well, that's obviously what Graham said, and Cornsey keeps saying they got what they deserve, or we got what we deserve.
Yep.
He was unhappy about their preparation or something.
Following that game, though, I'm missing the grand final.
Yep.
the Crows didn't quite feel the same the next year, did
No,
they?
no.
So some of the magic had been lost a little
Yeah,
bit.
it had. Yep.
Have you, I mean, in your storied relationship with Graham, have you ever discussed 94 and his departing of the club? And
Yeah. I think he lost well, no, I don't think. I know he lost some of the players.
yes.
Not all the players. There was a story going around. No, I don't know how true this is, but one particular player, when he got on the bus to go back home to the country, said, "Well, if Corngy's coach, I'm not coming back now."
Oof.
That's a story that was floated about, and I think Corngy got the vibe that he was on borrowed time.
Yeah.
And, but look, he did a wonderful job, Corngy. Like they worked out of Atco Huts at Amy Stadium.
Yep.
Curls helped to get the squad together. It was so tough. They were limited in what they could do. And that first game against Hawthorn, I'll never, ever forget that.
So were you there?
Oh, was I there?
Try and keep them away.
Was I there?
Try and keep
I
them
couldn't
away.
believe it.
So-
I cried.
Were you there as part of the media? Like, were you calling the game? Or
No,
just-
I didn't call that game.
Yeah.
I was in the box,
Right.
and just the crowd reaction. We're just in control the whole game.
You can just imagine the atmosphere.
Wholesale.
I've never witnessed anything like that. That was unique, and
Yes.
everybody walked out of the ground saying, "Hey, how good's this?
We've arrived.
We've arrived. We're here. We're here."
A credit to the public of South Australia. They've given the Crows full support. And here they go to open the season, to open their AFL career. And it's Negri who gets a mighty
If I could
thump
take you back to
down
one
towards the
particular
half
moment in that
forward line.
game,
The Crows
where it was Brereton
Yeah.
hitting Bones McDermott
Yep.
during that game.
Yep.
That, to me, that sort of set the standard where Hawthorn have gone, oh, hang on, we better start taking these blokes seriously.
Exactly right.
And
Yeah.
Brereton's got it in his head to go, oh, well, I'll just go sub their captain.
Yeah. He whacked him too. I
Didn't
don't
he,
mind
didn't
telling you.
Yeah.
Boy, yeah.
McDermott. Oh, down he goes. Oh, there'll be a fight on here. Negri's in quickly. McDermott's hurt. That was terrible stuff there by the two Hawthorn players, and McDermott has not moved.
That was a highlight. I can tell you. Ask Berman about that.
I did get the chance to ask him about that once.
you?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I met him at the, of all places, Angle Park Dog Track. Just of all
No, that sounds
places.
about right.
And I met him there, and I got to say my earliest memory of you was that hit, and he said to me, "Oh, gee, thanks for bringing that up."
Yeah, no, that was a good game. Great game.
So
Fantastic.
we can go back even further, obviously, before the Crows' inception in July 1990 was around the time where Port Adelaide were coming into the fold and wanting to launch into the AFL.
Do you have to go back to that?
Yeah,
We'd love to. We'd love to get your thoughts
so,
on it.
what were your thoughts at that
Well,
point?
I was working for 5DN at the time.
Mhm.
Brian Cunningham was on the panel. We used to have a Friday night footy show. Paul Weston, Rick Davies, Brian Cunningham.
Yep.
And I'd been outspoken about the fact that they'd gone behind the back of the SANFL
Yep.
to go into the AFL.
Yep.
And it was that of all my time in the media, that was the most controversial and ugly moment of my time, because people who were friends suddenly became enemies. And I was outspoken. And this particular day, it was a Saturday, it was in July. I'm a West Adelaide man.
Westies,
Westies
yes.
playing Port at Alberton.
Yes.
And the phones had gone red hot for the last couple of months. And I walked into Alberton, which has never been my favourite ground. I don't mind telling you.
Nor mine, if I'm
Well,
honest.
it's not the most popular ground with me. I walked in onto the terraces, and suddenly people are looking around. And our commentary spot was in the middle of the grandstand. I remember walking up, sitting down, and I had this horrible, eerie feeling that this was going to be one of those unforgettable days and not pretty. Anyway, they're playing West Adelaide, and they're smashing them. Port is smashing them. Every time Port kicked a goal, the people on the terraces turned around to me in the stand and gave me the bird.
Two fingers salute.
Gave me the bird, and I knew that this was going to be.
We're going to have a very, very sad situation here in South Australian football.
Port Adelaide crowd, giving KG no sort of serve. It's got a police escort.
This is quite silly.
I'm sitting there, and there's a lady sitting in front of me, and this is at half time, and suddenly this lady turned around and said, "KG, I'm sorry about what's happening here today. Would you like a cup of coffee?" And I said, "Oh, that'll be lovely." And our Port Adelaide person asked me to like a cup of coffee, and poured me a cup of coffee, gave me a piece of cake, and I later found out that was Greg Phillips's mum.
Wow.
Greg Phillips's mum.
How?
Because I said to Brian Cunningham, and when we went into to the TV station, I told him this story.
Yes.
And he said, I know who that lady is. He said, it's Greg Phillips's mum. And I rang her the next week, and I kept in touch with her. A beautiful family, the Phillips family.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'll never forget that moment.
Yep.
And at the end of the game, at those days, I was hosting the KG's footy show back at Channel 9.
Yes, yep.
And I had to leave 10 minutes before the finish of the game to get on air. And I remember as I stood up and walked down the steps onto the terrace, saying the people in the stands had seen it and had cast their view to me rather than what was happening out on the Albion Oval, because the game was over. Port killed them.
Yep.
And I can remember walking into the crowd. I walked that way. People would come that way and bump me and knock me glasses. And I thought,
oh my God,
I thought I'm in trouble here. Someone's going to go be stupid and go bang, bang,
Give
bang.
a whack.
Give a whack. But I was lucky because the police who were on duty, one of them was Bob Hall, who was a former umpire with me, Pat Hall's brother, Bob Hall, and he came to my rescue. And I'll never forget. I thought I was in real strife. Absolutely.
The footage of you walking down the race exists on YouTube now.
It does it.
And I've watched it a couple of times since, and it there's a feeling, a real eerie feeling.
I thought someone's going to throw one from
the
somewhere.
police are sort of keeping people at bay.
And they didn't watch the footy. They just and
watching
they were
you.
all cheering in the grandstand.
I'd love to ask you too, just going back to the formation and then the High Court injunction, and looking back, I mean, we're all a little bit young to remember that time in any sort of clarity. But looking back, it very much felt like it was Port Adelaide against the rest.
Oh, it was.
So there was no one sitting on the fence saying, well, I can understand Port's position.
You were either a Port Adelaide fan or you hated them because they'd given their word that they wouldn't do what they did. Davey Boyd, who was on the board at the time, found out what was going on and resigned from the board because he said, no, I'm not being a party to all this. A lot of friends suddenly became very bad enemies. It was a terrible moment in footy, and I'll say this: that if it wasn't for Max Bashir, we wouldn't have football as we know it today. Because had they got in, and it was the AFL, and they desperately the VFL then they
needed the money.
Well, that's exactly right. They were the clubs were going broke. They needed the money, and they were desperate to get either Norwood or Port Adelaide, and they were playing one against the other.
Correct.
And it was the work done by Max Bashir, who was then the president, that stood up to the Vex, that got us through that horrible moment. That's probably the worst moment I've known in South Australian footy, without a shadow of a doubt.
Wow.
Unreal.
Shadow of a doubt.
And the Crows to be born out of that too. It's phenomenal.
Absolutely. Well, from pressure, you get diamonds, don't you?
You do. As Coolsey says, pressure builds diamonds.
That's it. So then we fast forward back to 1994. Obviously, a lot happened in 1994.
Yeah.
Graham Corns was replaced by Robert Shuru, who we've touched on. In 94, that saw the agreement for Port to enter the AFL. It was originally supposed to be 1996 from memory, but it didn't come until 1997. Firstly, did you think the rivalry would be as fierce in the AFL as it was in the beginning, in that first showdown between the Crows and Port? Did you think it would be?
I knew it would be, without a shadow of a doubt, because, they didn't like Port Adelaide. But no, you had to be a Port Adelaide supporter to love them. And look, you can't deny what they've achieved in the SANFL. Well, 36 premierships, I think it is. Like, you don't like them. And in fact, I've never liked them, but you've got to respect them for what they did. Even as a kid, when I was at West Adelaide, living in the West End, Port used to beat us by less than a bloody kick every week they played. I used to go home and walk up. Their home ground was Adelaide Oval. I walk up King William Street with my late dad to where I lived in Market Street, by the market there, crying. Dad, they've beat us again, Dad. They've beat us again. Look, you're either a Port person or you're not a Port person.
Yeah. And the other thing that happened in 1994, one of the most lopsided trades of all time, was Chris Groom for Andrew McLeod.
Wow. How good was that?
Well, I think we came out on top there.
That was a master
What is your earliest memory of Andrew McLeod? you reckon? Because he was running around for Port Adelaide in the...
Well, we all knew, well, not all of us, but a lot of us knew just what talent the bloke had.
Yeah.
And with all due respect, Chris Groom, when he first came there, we had high expectations of Chris, but sadly that never eventuated for whatever reason. But when you look back now, and hindsight's a very wise thing, that goodness gracious me, how good was he?
Yeah.
Some of the times that I've had the pleasure of calling Andrew McLeod, the way that he did things, so skillful, and it was just an amazing situation. But that's one of the greatest gets of all time.
In the AFL players that you've seen, I personally think he's the best player not to have won a Brownlow. He's probably. I'd have to look it up. But
There'd be a couple others up there. But
they'd be up there. The amount of players that have polled a certain amount of votes without winning a Brownlow, he would be right up there. He was always.
There's no doubt. Like how many North Smith medals did he win for goodness sake?
Well, I mean,
he won all he could. He won both of them.
Exactly right. And that's I judge that because it's grand final day, and that's a tough day. But no, he was. And you talk to people as to who's the best Crows player. Is it Mark Prosciutto? Is it Andrew McLeod?
Yep.
I think McLeod just had his nose in front. I rate Sean Wren very high.
Yes, absolutely.
Like 3 knee reconstructions. Goodness gracious.
And probably should have won a Brownlow as well in its time.
Rennie could play too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
They don't make them like that anymore.
They don't. No.
So
the game's changed.
Yeah. What's your favourite memory of Andrew McLeod? So we got the grand finals, obviously, but was there a seminal moment that you remember, say, in a home and away match?
Not that one comes to mind, because he had so many
highlights.
Every time he got near the ball, he'd say Macca's going to do something special, and he did it.
Yeah,
almost every time. And he was a unique player, and just lovely to watch.
Well, watching that game back in the 97 fight, he didn't get heaps of the ball in that game.
No.
But everything he did was perfect.
Yeah.
I don't think he made one mistake throughout either of those grand finals.
Absolutely. Poetry in motion he was.
Absolutely.
Easily.
And while we're talking about 97, obviously Shaw was sacked and Malcolm Blight came in at the start of the year, and he'd won 3 grand finals with Geelong.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when he came in and he delisted McDermott, McGuinness, Jars, and Anderson?
Well, I said, Blighty, you've pulled a clanger here, son. You've pulled a clanger.
Really?
But how wrong was I?
Yeah. you weren't the only one, mate.
No,
so many people. He was criticised for that straight off the bat.
Yeah, he was, and it was John Reid, who his great mate, who was the football operations manager. He went and did it.
Right.
And then speaking to John Reid, it's the toughest thing he's ever had to do in footy. But when you look back now, again in hindsight, it's the only thing that I'll say is that the Blighty and Modern never saw eye to eye, really. Yeah. I know Mod just come out since and said there's no hard feelings, but I just think the Blighty treated him harshly, which was sad because Mod's, the fans loved him. Yeah. Adored him.
Absolutely. Where do you rate Modry in all-time Crows, you reckon?
He's up there. He's definitely in the first 5
He's literally up there.
That's what he did beautifully. He did beautifully, but but he was difficult to handle for the media. He was very shy. Very shy.
Well, there was shy players. I mean, Andrew McLeod is
Darren Jarman. Wouldn't say boo to a church mouse.
And compared that to his brother,
Andrew, unbelievable. Never shut him up.
Was there ever a player that you, and we asked the same question to Graham Goodings a little while ago when we got to chat to him, was there ever a player that you really looked forward to getting on the mic, a player that you'd love to just get in the room and have a chat with, or conversely, was there a player that you used to dread?
No. There's one that I'm still good mates with him today, and every time that I interviewed him, I had to have my finger on the dump button, like I did. Can you believe, to this digressing, can you believe today we had Neil Curley on?
Yes.
Because he was interested in the top 5 Port players of top 50?
Yep. Interesting chat too. I heard a little bit of that.
But did you hear the pub?
I missed it, unfortunately, but go on.
Well, we're talking about this umpiring situation. The Vic said no, AFL said no to SA umpires, and I said, what do you think of that? And he said, oh, bloody hell, Jesus Christ, those bloody effing Victorians.
You can say fuck on our podcast.
Those fucking Victorians. And I've got, hey, get Cornsey. And there's Cornsey. He's got the dump button. He can't find the dump button. He's hit about 27 buttons and missed the dump button. I look at the producer's booth, and here's Lee Forrest going, and luckily, Lee hit the button. Right, that was today.
So didn't get the memo.
No, jeez. We might have got the DCM and have got through. Don't come Monday.
Well, we're lucky we can just put a little E on our podcast, can't we?
We're just going to rub down. KG says fuck.
Yeah. Fucking Victorians. Oh, it's like a bloody piano player. Oh, fun as a fit.
Not the answer I thought I got, to be honest.
What was I talking
I
about?
don't remember.
No, it was about the players that you always had to have the dump button ready to go.
That's,
But the best player to talk to or interview, most of the time he didn't make sense, but that didn't matter. That was the funny side. Rick Davies.
Yeah.
Now, I've
I remember Rick.
Talking about the magic word, I've never been to a function where a player is able to drop the magic word so many times and not offend anybody.
Yes.
Now, I remember we had a luncheon at Amy Stadium, and Rick was one of the guest speakers, and there was about 8 of us on the table, and we had a bet as to how many times he would drop the F word.
Yeah.
Sort of closest to the pin kind of thing,
Closest
wasn't
to the pin. I mean, yeah. 42 times. 42, wasn't it? 42. But you would not meet a funnier man.
Yeah.
You would not meet a more entertaining man and a great bloke to talk to.
But
Great bloke.
here's a question. Did you win nearest the pin for the fucks?
Yeah.
No, I had 38.
See,
Not far off.
How was it? I thought it was John, the former newsreader.
Riddell?
John Riddell.
Did he get it?
He got it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, John Riddell. Yeah.
Kept you at the post.
So
Yeah.
this is what working in the newsroom gets you, though. He's
Yeah.
got insight and he's got
That's
initiative.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
He's done his research.
He's done his
And
research.
he knows how
already.
many fucks are going to be drunk.
But he was great to interview.
Yeah.
He didn't have a clue what he was saying. Didn't have a clue. Never had a clue.
Oh, do you want to get us back on track, mate?
So Malcolm Blight comes in, makes some hard calls.
He did. Yep.
You had the inaugural showdown in '97, which the Crows lost by 11 points.
Yep.
They started the season 2-4, but then they went on a run and finished 13-9. Did you think they were a chance
No,
to win the flag that year?
No chance. No chance in the wide world. No chance.
My personal favourite game of all time
Which
for the
one?
Crows is that prelim against the
yes.
Bulldogs. They lost by
2 points.
They lost by 7 goals to the
correct.
Bulldogs in round 20.
That's right.
And then they were up by 5 goals in the prelim at half time.
You think, here we go again.
Yeah.
Did you think it would be a repeat of the Essendon game in '93 as it tightened up?
No, I was hoping and praying that it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But that goes through your mind. But no, that was a big win.
Yeah.
We'd lost Modra
Correct. Early in the game.
early in the game.
And
First
is that
quarter,
where
yeah.
Liverpory at halftime kicked a goal and jumped into the arms of a
reckon-
teammate?
I think it was later, though. I think it was in the fourth
Was it?
quarter.
I remember Cornsey saying, that's a bad sign.
Yes.
That's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Did Libba win the Brownlow that year? Did he win it in '97? I'm
no,
not
that
sure.
was Robert Harvey who won it
Yeah.
after Chris Grant.
Yes.
I
was
remember
eligible.
vividly Cornsey saying in the background, that's a bad sign for the Bulldogs. He jumped into the arms of
That was their energy, wasn't it?
Yeah,
They-
3 or 4
yeah.
players, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you talking about?
You probably said that a lot in the commentary box as well.
I did what Neil Curley did today on our radio program. I used a bit more colourful.
So the Crows won the premiership in '97.
Yep.
Do you think?
No.
Wait up. Do you think a premiership hangover is a thing?
It can be, obviously, whether it's a hangover. But
Trying to defend it the next year.
Well,
like
you're
they
trying to
did.
defend it, but to win back-to-back premierships, how often do you do that? And that's
In our case, once.
exactly right. Haven't come close since.
So-
But that's a difficult. Never did I dream that they'd win the 98 one. No,
Well, that's the
never did.
thing. There's some weird similarities because in '98 they started 2-4,
Correct.
and they finished 13-9 again.
So
But
yeah.
mind you, we were lucky in '98. I remember this vividly. The bloke who played his heart out in the first half was Benny Hart.
Yes.
In the back pocket.
Yep.
Had he not been there, and if North Melbourne kicked straight, game over.
Game over.
It's amazing in that game that we talk about how good Caven was, and he was. He took Carey apart through that
Came
game.
from nowhere.
Yeah, but you're right. Ben Hart.
Ben Hart's first half was
Yep.
unbelievable, and had they kicked straight, still kicked straight, they get home. But Benny Hart's game in that first half was and then Caven.
Absolutely.
God, strike me pink. Where did he come from?
Where did he come from?
Well, that's exactly
he took
right.
the player of the decade,
Yeah.
the guru, the messiah,
Probably the
of
greatest player of all
footy.
time.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the accolades made him look average.
Unbelievable.
Exactly.
No.
Where are we going next?
The Gary Ayres era.
I reckon he was harshly treated, Gary Ayres.
Yeah.
I reckon he was.
There was consistent finals appearances
They
between
were.
2001 and 2003.
He just,
They made a prelim. Like it's not as if he didn't have. They weren't a successful.
And
team,
I don't know why he was treated harshly, even by some of my friends that were part of the Crows. Never spoke in glowing terms of Gary Ayres. One of the criticisms was he didn't have enough flair, didn't show enough flair, and all those sorts of things. But I reckon if you look back on his record, okay, he didn't get the ultimate prize, but I reckon he was harshly treated, Gary Ayres.
My memory,
and I found him a great bloke.
My memory of that area was that we were always just a player, or we were just a game off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we were always there, and he was great for the media. Fantastic. Yeah, honest, blunt, but straight up front to you.
Well, that leads me beautifully into another question about who, in terms of accessibility at the club, who's been the easiest coach or the easiest administrator to get an interview with? Because the perception of the Crows now is that they're not very accessible to the media.
You said that Robert Shaw was the hardest.
Oh,
Yes.
He was terribly hard. Terribly hard.
So were there easier times to get in touch with the club? And
Oh,
is it fair to say the club's a little bit stonewalled at the moment?
Apprehensive.
Yeah. Look, Graham Cause was good. You had to go through certain channels, but he was good, Corns. He didn't give you too much.
Sure.
He knew what he was giving you, but he was very good. Blighty, I found Blighty fine. He was good, Blighty. Again, not everyday accessible, which is fair enough. But they have been difficult. They haven't handled a few things the right way, like the camp and all that, and the press conference after that.
It makes my stomach churn just thinking about that press conference.
Exactly, it was
Awful.
embarrassing.
It was,
and they try to cover things up, and that's carried over a bit. Now that's where people are now saying, "Oh, they're not transparent." Well, but the problem with the Crows is that everybody wants a piece of them.
Yeah,
everybody wants a piece of them because they sell newspapers, they get ratings, they get all that. Now, the club has to put a lid on it, but there's a way of doing it. And I don't think that they've handled a few situations as professionally and as good as they can. Look, I love the Crows. But you've got to be brutally honest. And
absolutely.
Now they've got and we spoke about it today. Amazon.
They're doing the
documentary.
A documentary on the Crows. Now, as I said to Cornsey, I hope they don't cut anything out of it. They've seen fit to go ahead with it.
Yes.
I just hope that it all just comes out and proves to Adelaide that the Adelaide Crows are transparent, because that's the image they've got. A lot of people say, "Oh, the Crows, they're up themselves," like Koshy the other day saying that. I can't. No. I'll lose my cool.
We better write that down.
I'll lose my cool. Koshy coming out and say, "Go to Port Adelaide, eat Belfast pies, and you eat quiche. You drink Chardonnay."
What's wrong with quiche? I made a beautiful quiche the other night. Yeah, made a very nice quiche.
And I said today on radio, Koshy, I'm a mad Crows supporter.
Yep.
My late father, Kenneth Stanley Cunningham, was the foreman of Balfour's factory for 35 years. It was called Balfour Walkup then.
That was Morford
and Franklin Street.
Franklin, yes, that's right.
As a kid growing up, when I went to work, I worked at a place called Farmers Union on the corner of Franklin and Bentham Street. Bang. At lunchtime, it's now apartments now. At lunchtime, I used to walk down to the Balfour's factory, walk into the factory, see Dad. He'd give me a freshly baked pie and Balfour's pasty. He'd give me his keys to his FJ Holden, which he used to park in Light Square right out the front of Sands McDougall, a printing firm. It's no longer there. I sit in the car reading the pink Sporting Globe. You guys wouldn't know about it, but the paper was pink. It was a Sporting Globe, a racing. And so I grew up on Balfour's pies.
There you go.
So I said on there today, Koshy, I'm a Crows man. I grew up on Balfour's and pies and pasties.
I don't get the need, especially.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Why?
Peter. Well, you read his comments and then you read those of Matthew Nix in the same article.
Yes.
And it's like, sure, one's professional, one's trying to be a smart so-and-so.
Yes.
And it backfires.
But is it that need to be? Some people conflate being controversial with being newsworthy, or being controversial and being cutting edge. Sometimes you're just being controversial, aren't you? Sometimes you're just shooting your
sometimes
mouth
you're just
off.
being bloody stupid. Absolutely. It's not the first time he's put his foot in his mouth.
No, he's got a bit of a feud with Mickey Malthouse at the moment.
Well, to call Malthouse a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Now, there's a man who last year was inducted in the AFL Hall of Fame.
Yes. One of the very few coaches to win a premiership
with
at
two teams.
two teams. Correct.
Exactly right. And the longest serving AFL coach.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
And he calls him a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Now, that's... even from the Port Adelaide's point of view, the club, him saying that publicly does him and the club no good at all.
Exactly.
No, absolutely.
Stupid.
He might be a dinosaur, successful dinosaur.
Yeah,
right?
very.
Well,
Yes.
exactly right.
Yeah.
I said the AFL don't induct dinosaurs into the AFL Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
Otherwise, I'd be there.
So we'll fast forward to 2005, 2006. Personally, I consider any West Coast success around that time tainted as to what's come out since
with the
involving
drugs.
Yep.
Do we need to put a legend
around
over
that
this? Do we need to put a little?
No, it's factual. It's on
It's
the record.
factual. Fine.
Do you think the Crows? Do you think the Crows would have beaten Sydney in either of those grand finals if they had made it? You reckon?
They probably would have, That's the Crows. They probably would have. It's all hypothetical. But
Yeah, of course.
to answer your question, they probably could have and probably would have. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
But that was a sad time for footy too.
It was.
Business closing. And the Ben Cousins drama, I can't come to terms with that.
No.
Yeah.
It is desperately
I
sad.
umpired
isn't
his
it?
father, Brian Cousins, in 3 state games.
Yep.
Very good player and a
Yeah.
lovely man.
Yeah.
And
A good family, yeah.
Well, a lovely family. And I put myself in his shoes. How would it be if that was my son? Like he's done
Exactly.
everything he possibly can.
Yeah.
A good-looking young kid, well at his feet, champion footballer. Oh,
Unfortunately, without going too much into it,
no,
you can't help people who
we won't
don't want to help themselves. So
Yeah.
And it's a complicated issue from the start, isn't it?
It
So
is.
it's a
Yeah.
Did you see the most recent TV?
I did.
Yeah.
I
What did you think?
I didn't like it at all.
No, I'm not hearing many positive things
No,
about it
not
at all.
like it at all. No,
Mm.
no. You knew that things weren't right. You could pick it.
And that's the thing with documentaries or interviews.
Yeah.
They're always going to shine a light or come across a
Correct.
certain way.
Yeah.
The way that you're saying you want the Adelaide Crows one to be transparent. There's one
Yeah.
out at the moment called The Last Dance revolving around
Michael
Jordan and
Yep.
the Chicago Bulls
Yep.
team.
I've seen a couple of those.
Yep. The last ones have finished last week.
There's
and
been
now,
a few people critical of it.
Yeah. Now you've got players that were in it saying that they weren't portrayed in a certain
right
light.
manner, exactly.
And so many things they said were cut and edited.
Yeah,
and so-
Really?
yeah.
Exactly. Right. That's what you've got to be very careful of.
Yeah.
Getting into that sort of territory.
It's just finding the balance, really, just to.
and it's not easy.
No.
Not
So-
easy at all.
So that's a part with the Crows thing as well. Sorry to digress, but they need to show all the footage.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it's just
Correct.
If it's Darcy Fogarty making toast, just put the whole thing up.
I would watch Darcy Fogarty just do his daily routine.
Doing anything.
every day.
Writing a
Absolutely.
list.
Well,
yes.
they show the Stengel situation.
Yeah.
They did say that they recorded that.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. Now, I'll be keen to see or interested to see how they handle that in the documentary.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Because it's a sad
that-
chapter in that young man's life.
Well, it is.
But it happened.
And see, the Crows were hammered over that because they didn't release it to the prime media. Get a life.
No. Yeah.
Gee,
It's true.
See, that's an example of just having a crack at the Crows because it sells
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
advertising.
It's all about money, mate.
Unfortunately, that's the industry
Unfortunately.
now, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
well, let me ask you this question: Why are we playing AFL football this year?
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
Of course. Do you know what? I had that on the list, and I'm
Absolutely.
glad you brought it up because would you see this season played out in full if they came to you and said, "KG, what do you reckon? Should we bother with footy?"
Look, I would have said let's put a line through it initially, but I know what they're thinking is that they're in debt and they need the money. But what is whichever side wins the premiership? Does it carry the same value this time as it has in the past? And I've got to be brutally honest. I don't think personally it does
Either door.
carry the same value.
I'm absolutely with
It's
you.
because it's all changed and
Correct.
You know, like one moment we were going to the Gold Coast and hubs, now we're not, and this and that. And boundaries are closed, and it just doesn't sit right with me.
Even some of the rule changes they've introduced for the year, sitting at 1.5 meters apart from on the interchange bench.
That is the most hilarious thing ever.
But you're allowed to tackle a bloke out on the ground like usual.
That's right.
Yeah. I think it's a symbolic thing. It is, but it's symbolically hilarious.
People say that this season won't mean the same as previous seasons, and I agree.
Yeah,
but in saying that, if a team still wins a prelim this year, you're trying to tell me that they won't want to get around each other and sing the song in the huddle in a prelim?
Absolutely.
You're still going to expect blokes to stand 1.5 meters apart in the change room?
No.
Don't hug me, mate. Don't hug me. I have to kick you the goal,
What about the high fives? Because it's an instinctive thing.
Of course,
exactly. You've grown up doing it.
And that's what you're taking out of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one of the best parts of the game.
Exactly.
You're taking emotion away.
So all of a sudden,
and it's played on emotion.
Exactly.
It is. And you're starting to talk about then, well, at what point do we say, is this worth it?
Yeah, exactly right.
Absolutely.
Sad thing to say. And I love my footy, but it's not going. And having no fans there, I saw round one against Sydney.
It's weird,
And
wasn't
I
it?
thought, God, exactly. I said, how weird is this?
Yeah.
That was like even watching that Thursday night. It was Carlton Richmond, and it was just the worst part was when I think it was around the third quarter where Channel 7 Brian Taylor decided to shut up for once. But then there was just eerie, just hearing the players, and they're just like, isn't it good to just hear that? And it's just like,
there is part of me that does enjoy that as a bit of a novelty aspect. Yeah. But you're right, you can't build a season around that. That's not marketable.
No.
Can I ask you about the state of SANFL footy then? How do you feel about moving forward with SA footy?
They're under the pump enormously.
Aren't they?
Oh,
especially with Port not able to be the comp.
Growing up as a kid in the West End, I was a mad West Adelaide boy. And I grew up on SANFL footy. It was everything that I lived for, footy and cricket. And to think, I would never, ever thought I'd see the day, and it was out of our control, that come the SANFL, we couldn't afford to pay our players.
Yeah.
Can't afford to pay the umpires. Can't afford to do this. And I just think that's a very sad day.
Absolutely.
For SANFL footy, and to see where it's gone from up there to where it is now.
Exactly.
It's not good. Not good at all.
No. Do you think we'll come out of this stronger, or do you think there'll be repercussions long term?
Well, there's got to be repercussions financially. They'll cut the list. They'll do all sorts of things. But I think they've got a chance now to try and make the game a better spectacle.
Yes.
I don't like criticising footy because it's been my life, but the modern game is not the spectacle that I enjoy now as I did previously. Sitting back watching some of these replays, you know, some of the replays are fantastic. I think the game's been over umpired.
Yep.
The game's been over coached, like 15 assistant coaches.
Exactly.
Stupid.
Yep.
Think of the message that are in the players' heads all the time. Now we have a chance to get that back because they're not going to be able to afford it. They'll cut the playing list back to 35. There'll be no more than probably 3 coaches at a club, and I think that might be a good thing.
I don't think there's a single AFL supporter that wouldn't agree that fast, free-flowing football is the best kind of
football.
Well,
that's our game.
That is. Yeah.
Move the ball about, handball, kicking.
Yeah.
That's the game.
I enjoy rugby, but if I want rugby, I'll watch rugby.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I want footy, I'll watch footy.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on something real quick in regards to the redevelopment of Adelaide Oval and the delays there, obviously with SANFL building a football park back in the 70s and the divide there between SAC and the SANFL.
Yep.
When that all came to fruition, did you think that this should have happened just 30 years ago or at the time? Or what were your thoughts on when that happened?
I never ever thought once Judge Brebner and Sir Donald Bradman fell out at the Adelaide Oval.
Yes.
And Max Bashir then, of course, built Amy Stadium down at West Lakes. I never ever thought that the SACA and footy would get back together, and never ever think that down the track we see AFL football played again at the Adelaide Oval. Never ever dreamt.
Yeah,
and that's been wonderful for this state. Absolutely brilliant.
Couldn't agree
The
more.
redevelopment of the ground, the hotel now. I had my doubts about that.
Oh, we all do too.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about this on air a couple of times.
That might be the jewel in the crown now when it comes to the India tour of Australia this summer, because I can tell you, I know for a fact, not big noting, that the Indian Cricket Board, who are the most powerful board in the world cricket-wise,
by a long way,
are very, very strong in their feelings to bring the Indian team here, which is Virat Kohli's doing. Just put them at the in the hotel at the Adelaide Oval.
Intercontinental or whatever it is.
No, the one that's being built.
The Barnacle Hotel.
Never heard of it. What's going on?
Yeah, the one that's attached to Adelaide Oval.
Yeah,
the one that's right on the east side.
It'll be finished in September. It's on the site.
Yep.
And you wouldn't.
It's almost finished now.
It will be finished in September. And because of the hotel, they'll house them there, and they'll stop them from needing to travel everywhere. So
brilliant.
Could we see 4 test matches? We'll see multiple test matches, I think. Maybe 4. Wouldn't that be good?
I was so critical of that when it first started.
So was I.
And I remember thinking, what a waste of money and time, and it's going to upset the look of the Oval. I couldn't be more wrong. I don't think.
I was utterly against it.
Yep.
Utterly against it. But it may be the jewel on the crown now. But that might. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it be?
To have the Boxing Day test match at Adelaide Oval.
Yeah. Where it belongs.
Stick it up there. You whoopee-doo. Whoopee-doo.
Just for the listeners, KG raised a certain salute.
Yeah, he flipped the bit.
Whoopee-doo.
He was pointing to Victoria as well.
Yeah,
he was pointing to the east.
You reckon I wouldn't make a few phone calls? You there, Warnie?
I'll type the number for you, mate.
Now, unfortunate, probably the saddest part in the history of the Adelaide Crows is the passing of Phil Walsh a couple of years ago.
Yes, it was.
What were your impressions of the man? What stood out to you?
Well, let me say this. When Phil Walsh was at Port Adelaide, next to Robert Shaw, he was the most difficult man to talk to get an interview with. I remember the 2004 grand final. And I said to our producer, look, we've got to get a coach on before the game.
Yeah.
And he worked and worked and worked. And he said, came back and said, we've got Phil Walsh on the morning. He's promised to be okay. Didn't bob. And he was he was difficult. But if you go back then to the Adelaide Crows days, you speak to the players, and goodness gracious me, he had an enormous impact on a lot of players as individuals and as footballers.
That was my next question. Do you understood how he commanded the respect in such a short time?
It was unbelievable. Absolutely. You know, from a personal point of view and a player, you speak to every player at that club that under Phil Walsh, and they say that he had something special. Now, I didn't see that in the media, but hey, it was obviously shy. Fine, you move on. The most important thing from his point of view is communication with his players, but he had them right in the palm of his hand. Absolutely. Yeah. And the whole thing was just
devastating.
It was devastating. Good word. Absolutely.
The one thing I seem to remember was just his meticulous approach to preparation and games. When he came out and said that he was always 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't looking to next week's game. He was already past that and on to the next week's game, and just
he had something special. No two ways about that. You asked Mark Rasciuto.
Well, I remember without going too deeply into that day, I remember Mark Rasciuto
dropping the story.
I remember driving to work and hearing it. And it's one of those, remember where you...
the car.
Yep. You remember where you were at the time, don't you?
I said, Adelaide now, where our reporter Elise Baker has more on the man's body who was found inside a home in Somerton Park. Elise, it's over to you.
And Natalia, we have just had confirmation that the victim here is former AFL football player and current coach of the Adelaide Crows, Phil Walsh. So the body of Phil Walsh was found at this home at around 2 o'clock this morning here on Bungie.
Those words don't make sense. But again, not going too deeply into today.
What are you expecting out of the Crows and Matthew Nicks this year?
Well, I've been most impressed with Matthew Nicks so far.
Yep.
And I had some dealings with Port. He was fantastic to deal with. Absolutely. And again, you speak to Port Adelaide players, speak to Treadray, big raps for him.
Yep.
And you just see his comments in the paper recently. Very professional. And even young Brad Crouch in today's paper says he feels different about he wants to stay at Adelaide. Matthew Nicks being a
hello.
But he won't get $1 million.
No,
those days are gone.
No. Definitely not.
They're dead and buried.
That's the worst thing. Well, for players or out of this whole situation is there's going to be a lot less money to go around.
Definitely.
There'll be no more $1 million players.
But let's be honest. Footy players shouldn't be playing the game for money anyway. They should be playing it for the love of the game. They'll still get
Andrew,
the money.
If you can't live nicely on 750,000 or 800,000 a year.
Yeah.
There's something bloody wrong.
Exactly right.
Especially in Adelaide. That's sure.
right.
Oh, mate.
Especially when you're training 4 days a week and you're playing a game on a weekend.
So what do you do with your money?
Well, yeah, how can you spend it anyway?
Got no time.
No.
You could go jet skiing and, break your
It's
collarbone.
it's like me, an old retired announcer. I can live on an oily rag.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to spend some on.
Exactly
about
right.
We were chatting before you arrived about. To my mind, you've got the dream job.
Oh,
which is that you talk footy for a few hours with your good mates.
Yep.
And then you live the rest of your life. Is that a fair comment?
I'm blessed.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely blessed to do what I've been lucky enough to do for 44 years. No one should be that lucky. No, honestly, you just imagine. You get up of a morning, have your breakfast, put your bum in the motor car, you drive to the station, you're thinking when you're driving there, now, who will we talk to today? Will we get Blighty on the phone, or we get Ian Chappell? Or
yes.
You walk into the studio, there's a producer, you've got the papers all there spread out for you, read the papers, and you finally sit down and say, okay, we'll get Blighty on today about this, and Shane Wood on about that. You go to air at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
You have a chat to a close mate of Graham, of course, David Hooks. Chat to those blokes. And then you do 4 or 5 interviews for, say, 2 hours, play a song, and then you go home. You think, that's my day.
Unbelievable.
That is my day.
It's amazing.
Well, it's more than amazing. I just say, somebody up there likes me. I don't know who it is. But I've been blessed. Because when I went to school at age 12, I got an exemption from school because I had a stutter.
Yes.
And I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. I remember Mum taking me to the doctor and explaining what the problem was. And he said, Mrs. Cunningham, we've got a problem here. I'll write to the education department and see what we can do about it.
Yep.
And a month later, I got a letter from the education department, and I've still got it home, saying that because of advice from your local GP, Mrs. Cunningham, we've decided that we'll give your son an exemption from going to school. And that was it. I finished.
Yeah.
Wow.
6 months. I did 6 months at Goodwood Tech, and that was it. After Ascot Park Primary School.
The teacher part of me right now is wrapped with interest around that. That would not happen nowadays.
The good old days.
Yeah. Got an exemption. And to think then, when I think back then, that I used to go to the shop for Mum when we lived at Housing Trust Commissions in Aldridge Avenue, Brodeville. It's now Plimpton.
Yes.
Mum would get me after school to go to the shop to buy something. I'd wait outside the shop until the shop was customer empty. I'd go in, and I countless times the person behind the counter would say, yes, what would you like? And I'd look at the list, I'd start to say whatever I wanted to get. Then I started stuttering.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'd run out of the shop home to Mum saying, Mum, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And to think from that day, or those days, to now that I've been lucky enough, and I still stutter when I get excited, to be able to work on air and do the job that I'm doing. God,
absolutely,
it doesn't make sense, does it?
I mean, you say someone up there loves you. I think most of Adelaide loves you.
No,
And that's what I was going to touch on. You say that you're blessed, but I don't think what you've done will ever be replicated again. The amount of time you've been able to spend on air and the impact you've had on people. We see these days people. Take us, for example. We're a podcast, and there's a
you're part of it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's 1,000 of us out there, and people listen to music on their phones and Spotify's, like radio and the command that you've had for so long over so many years, and still have.
But Andrew, if I can do it, and I'm not saying I've done what you said, I appreciate it, but if I can do that, then anybody can do it, because I'm born and bred in the West End. Whitmore Square was my football ground, and I loved all those days. And can't break the lights and run home to Mum. Mum is saying, I'll take you to the police next week. Don't break the lights and all those sort of things.
I need to ask one question. It's something that me and my dad have talked about.
Yeah.
Do you get sick to death of people calling into the show and keep asking how you are?
Well, I had this last 12 months. My 80th birthday was last year.
Yes, yeah.
And it's still bloody going. And I'm 80, I'm in the 81st year. My birthday's in 2 months' time in July.
Oh, well, happy birthday for them, mate. I might ring up on the day.
How are you? And happy birthday.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God, strike me pink.
I might call you up in a year and a half and ask how your 80th birthday
Well,
is going.
Actually, I've called before. I will not be here, boy.
Of course you will be.
It can't go forever.
Wish you could.
Oh, good.
Yeah, me too.
Well, it's an absolute honour, mate.
No.
Cage.
Pleasure.
I can't thank you enough.
We appreciate you coming on.
No,
honestly.
it's a pleasure.
Anyway,
Pleasure. I've enjoyed it. Been good.
Good. We're glad you've enjoyed it.
But it's just sitting down talking to friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Easy.
from everyone from the Crowject podcast, everyone's been calling out for this interview. So thank you so much,
I don't
KG.
think so.
Oh, yes.
Trust me, we'll send you the messages.
Yeah, thanks, KG.
No, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
So that was our interview with Ken Cunningham there. And my God, everything that we went through there. So I've just got the list here that we've gone through. Favourite SANFL player, Inception of the Crows, State of Origin, Roo versus Kemp as well, 93 prelim, 97 prelim, Gary Ayres era, Phil Walsh. How's your job at the moment? The dream job, Cream. It was absolutely amazing everything that he went through.
Oh, he covered everything under the sun, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was going to take that long, but I think it's because he gave such in-depth answers.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He was just incredibly easy to interview and have a conversation with. So, look, a massissive thanks to him.
Absolutely.
Humble man too. We were thanking him. We were bigging him up, and he's just constantly no. Don't even. Refused our gift at the end because he's just too humble. He was just happy to be here and chat footy. And wow, that makes. I'm still shaking. I've still got a little bit of goosebumps in my arms. It's amazing. You know, I said to you off air before we started, it's, you know, when you get to meet your heroes, and people say you should never meet your heroes. Nah, he lived up to every expectation
And then some.
Yep.
And then some. So very quickly, listen into our latest podcast too. We'll be going back to a regular schedule soon. Look out for our Patreon page too, patreon.com/Crowject, and also a Redbubble merch too. Now, we'll hopefully have some more interviews soon in regards to our 1990s deep
I was
dive
going to
as
say
well.
there's going to be more. This can't be it.
No, we're having too much fun
We'll
now.
organise something. I'm trying to tee up a very big one later this week. But
I'm very keen on yours.
We'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Cream.
No worries. Thanks to our sponsors as well in Payne Med SA, Trojan Aluminium, and the Arkabar Hotel.
Absolutely. And thank you, Damon.
Thank you very much. And thank you all the listeners that wrote in with questions for KG. And thank you for your passion. And of course, thank you, great man KG, for coming and joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, KG.
Make sure you comment or you leave us thoughts on how you think the interview went. If you think there's anything additional we should be asking future guests or areas we should be covering, let us know.
Absolutely. And my name's Peter. Go you Crows.
Go the Crows.
Go you Crows.
One can fill for you, Freddie, as Smart goes bang.
It's a goal.
He's kicked the goal. I don't believe
It's a
it.
goal.
Nigel Smart has kicked it. And we're still, I can't do any more.
And
31 minutes into the final term. It's the Crows. 1911, 125. St Kilda 13-16, 94. What a magnificent performance this has been. And we've got 3 seconds remaining.
3 seconds to go. Now watch this all over the ground. Crows players are hands in the air, hugging, and some of them football careers absolutely on the rocks 12 months ago, maybe even 6 months ago. Players have come from total obscurity to absolutely star here for Adelaide today. Last bounce, Sean ran up, and the crowd. There it is.
That's the 1997 premiers are the Crows. It's unbelievable. And look at those scenes here. One must feel for St Kilda. They were magnificent in defeat, particularly for Stan Howes, but you've got to cherish this moment. I certainly will. Dix and Groom and Manny and Billy and Freddie. What a wonderful moment for South Australian football.
Where the mighty can recall.
Unbelievable moment. Listen to that song. And one must feel for Stan Howes. Malcolm Blight coming down the race now. His first premiership in AFL.
Mark Rasciuto has run out to the middle to join the players, as have many of the other Adelaide Crows squad members.
Unbelievable. Malcolm Blight will make his way to Stan Howes, I would suggest.
Yeah, he is.
And they shake hands at this moment. Well, what a wonderful game of football.
What a moment. Stan Howes and Malcolm Blight, fantastic.
Would you believe the champagne's already out there? Yeah. The Camry Crows decided to make an appearance. He's out there.